Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen. Thank you, Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Thank you, Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Evan Hansen
is a phrase many people among the theater community can't get out of their heads. Whether it be because you're a fan of it, or you have a friend who's a fan of it, or you connect with it at an intimate level, many people have been raving about it for a long time, and the show has been nominated for 9 Tonys now. It's one of the leading nominated shows for this year's Tonys. So being a show about high school and insecurity and mental illness and the consequences of self-involvement in social media, it's unsurprisingly taken the internet by storm in a flurry of hope and awareness. And Ben Platt, who you may know from Book of Mormon on Broadway or Pitch Perfect, has brought a unique perspective of somebody with extreme anxiety due to the incredible performance that he's led throughout the show's run so far.
Thank you. Performing live gives me such a rush.
It's definitely, I can't explain and I can't express it enough, but it's definitely, it's different. It's unique, it's incredible, with the little details that he uses, like fidgeting with the hem of his shirt and avoiding eye contact and trailing off sentences, trembling lips. It's definitely brought a believable character that's helped string together such a profound story. And not only is it just the acting skills that definitely have an impact, but his vocals. Have a unique flavor and adds an additional empowering variable to the table. His individual and original vibrato creates an audible trembling and hesitation that definitely captures a memorable character and raw emotion you can feel, especially in the song Words Fail. And no, I'm not talking about this one. I'm referring to this one.
Before I leave with the worst of me, I never let them see.
And now that the show is showing up out of what's seemingly nowhere for a lot of people, I figured it's probably best to give a little rundown, so I'll give you a warning in advance. If you are prone to triggers or references to subjects like depression, panic attacks, bullying, suicide, suicidal ideology, that kind of thing, I highly suggest you skedaddle, because this is not a light subject. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start by explaining the plot, especially to those who only heard the soundtrack. God bless you if you're one of those people, because I definitely have a little explaining to do for songs like that little number I like to call Sincerely Me.
I rub my nipples and start moaning with delight. Why would you write that? Has been hard, has been bad, has been rough. What the hell?
I originally listened to the music out of context, thinking that it would be more of an operatic, like Les Mis or Hamilton, where it's all sung with no dialogue, but there are definitely scenes with just dialogue that definitely are vital to the story. So, I'll get started on explaining what that is. So, Evan is a 17-year-old about to enter his senior year of high school, and he has some serious mental issues that prevent him from making any real friends and from approaching his crush, Zoe Murphy, who plays guitar in jazz band.
No, just I've seen you play guitar in jazz band. I love jazz band. I love jazz. Well, not all jazz, but definitely jazz band jazz. That's so weird. I'm sorry.
We'll get to her soon enough. Evan's crippling anxiety and cringeworthy social skills are...
Evan, right?
Evan.
That's your name.
Yes, it is. It's Evan. Sorry.
Why are you sorry?
Because you said Evan and then I said it and I repeated it, which is that is so annoying when people do that. So.
Are isolating him, and it feels like he sees all those people on social media with friends, but no one ever seems to talk to him, and it feels as if he's
on the outside, always looking in,
and
through a window.
So in order to tackle this issue, his therapist assigns him a self-confidence exercise where he's supposed to write a letter to himself every day saying,
Dear Evan Hansen, this is gonna be a good day, and here's why.
So the cast. not the actor cast. I'm talking about the thing on his arm. Somewhere in the summer before the senior year, he falls out of a tree while working at his local wildlife park. He broke his arm, and that's why he has the cast.
You fell out of a tree? What are you, like an acorn?
And he goes into school, and no one signs his cast. The first day, he bumps into some of his peers, and we're introduced to the rest of the teens of the cast, like Alana, who is like overdramatic and over-enthusiastic and self-inserting, and an overachiever who feels the need to make everything about her, and Jared Klienman.
The guy from our school, Jared Klienman. Yes, the insanely cool Jared Klienman!
He's a sarcastic, raunchy joke-making computer nerd, and he's also Evan's cousin and closest thing to a friend that he has. Then, of course, there's Zoe Murphy, who we mentioned earlier, who's kind and sweet and really pretty and stuff. I feel like she's not the strongest character because she has a very bland personality. She's kind of like one of the saltines of the cast, in my opinion. Just a little basic. Then there's Connor Murphy, who's Zoe's older brother, who, with the rest of the Murphy family, is briefly introduced in the opening with like Evan's mom and stuff. He's a stoner with some major mental issues, extreme temper, paranoia, aggression, and some pretty serious depression. He's really often misunderstood because of like the frequent like mood swings that he has, and is one of those angsty, aggressive punk kids that you really try to avoid in school. You know the ones I'm talking about. But anyway, Evan's in school, and he goes to print out the letter for the therapist in the computer lab, which ends up not being positive at all.
Dear Evan Hansen, turns out this wasn't an amazing day after all. This isn't going to be an amazing week or an amazing year, because why would it be? Oh, I know, because there's Zoe, and all my hope is pinned on Zoe, who I don't even know, and who doesn't know me, but, you know, maybe if I could just talk to her, then maybe nothing would be different at all. I wish everything was different. I mean, face it, would anyone even notice if I just disappeared tomorrow? Sincerely, your best and most dearest friend, me.
Connor just so happens to be in the lab at the same time as him, and actually politely brings it over to him after a small talk about Evan's arm, and he offers to sign his cast, which is like very nice. And he says, now we can pretend we both have friends, and that makes everybody a little sad. But then he confronts Evan about the letter and brings it up, and he ends up flipping a nut about it, deciding that the letter was an act of aggression towards him, and leaves with the letter shoved in his pocket. And the next day, Evan is called down to the office, and he meets up with the Murphy parents that tell him that Connor took his own life that night, and he still had Evan's letter in his pocket, so they believe that it's actually a suicide note addressed to him. And being panicky and not wanting to hurt their feelings or anything, he doesn't have the heart to tell the truth, agrees to have dinner with them that night. And at the dinner, he sees the family struggling to find good memories of Connor, and ends up telling them that he and Connor had a secret email account where they emailed each other, and panicking to share like positive memories, he makes up a story of how they visited a closed down apple orchard where they climbed trees and had meaningful conversations. And he explains that this is when he broke his arm in the apple orchard rather than the wildlife park that he worked at. He actually mentions that Connor is the one who drove him to the hospital when he broke his arm, and the family is in awe that their son had such positive memories when they just remember him being miserable all the time. And they're definitely curious of like the emails that Evan has. So Evan goes to Jared, and Jared agrees to help him create fake emails and backdates them so he can print them out and show them to the Murphys. That's what the song Sincerely Me is in the context of, where Jared's helping him write the emails but also making a bunch of gay jokes about it. Zoe, who's a little hesitant to believe her brother was a good person after all, eventually listens to Evan, and he's vicariously confessing his feelings for her through things Connor said about her, which is actually, his thoughts, which ends up kind of being cute. It's a cute scene. Eventually, or should I say, Evan, surely, I'm so funny. Evan feels guilty that he's sort of living off the benefits of Connor's death and decides to make an organization dedicated to Connor's memory. And they try to get through the message that no one should be alone or have to endure the pain that he did. And Alana, being self-insertive like she is, makes herself co-president with him, which is kind of rude. And because he's a pushover, he agrees, of course. The project goes viral, and soon it ends up being in full attention of his community and those across the globe, which requires more emails and a fundraiser to help save the orchard where Evan and Connor allegedly hung out in. And Evan eventually dates Zoe, and he gets distracted, and when the momentum and everything's rolling downhill, Alana confronts him as to whether the emails are real. And so, desperate to prove himself innocent, he sends her a copy of Connor's suicide note, in which she posts, despite him saying not to, and everything spirals out of control, and Evan's mom finds out and talks to him about Connor's suicide note, which she really knows is not written by Connor, and he ends up telling her about the time that he fell out of the tree and how he didn't fall out of the tree, he let go, which is also really, really emotional. Evan's mom's definitely heartbroken about this and vows she's going to pay more attention to his recovery and dedicate more time, and comforts him while everything's kind of collapsing around him. And eventually the Murphys end up finding out too after he confesses to them, and as expected, it's not exactly taken lightly. He tries to explain himself and he sings Words Fail, which is hauntingly heart-wrenching performance. It's oh my goodness. He finally gives in to the weight of the lies, and the final scene cuts to Evan a year later, finally somewhat mentally stable, waiting what looks like a grove of like new tree saplings, and Zoe meets him and explains that she met him there in order to make sure that he saw the new orchard and that there was some good in what came from the lies that he made. And she tells him that the whole family never told anybody about Connor and Evan, and eventually she leaves him alone, and he's just kind of contemplating and reflecting on what happened the past year. And the show concludes with his final letter.
Dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be a good day, and here's why. Because today, no matter what else, today at least you're you. So no hiding, no lying, just you, and that's enough. All I see is sky for forever.
And everyone cries, of course, and applauses, and everybody's like, oh, woo, great. So the whole story centers around mental health and human nature and social media, and it's definitely heavily impacted many, many, many people. And I'll do a separate video on like the topic of mental illness in that show. But this video is definitely long enough already, so I might as well leave it off here. To ensure that you do not miss the release of that video, I highly recommend you subscribe and like this if you would like to see more of this, or if you just generally enjoyed it a little bit. This has been Amelia, and I guess I'll see y'all next time.